I call Barbara Kuriga.
Mr Speaker, it's a pleasure to be speaking this afternoon on the Animal Welfare Amendment Bill. And I just make a couple of comments in the beginning about comments made by the member for Hutt South this afternoon about MPI and perhaps not being out there doing their job in the field. And I have to say that in my experience, prior to becoming a Member of Parliament in this House, I have done substantial work on various committees with MPI in the area of animal welfare. And I have to say that there's been a lot of work being done with industries, helping them to improve the practices that they partake in order to earn an income. And while there's been some reference today as well about this bill being around for a long time, and I will acknowledge those that have gone before me as one of the newer members of the Primary Industries Primary Production Select Committee, that doesn't mean actually that nothing has been happening out there. And so people who farm animals are really keen to make a difference. They know what the market perceptions are. They know what people are saying about their practices, and there's a lot of work constantly going on all the time to make sure that they're upholding the best practices they possibly can. So we've heard a bit today about the 16 codes of welfare which are covered under the Act, and of course these codes will be strengthened by the new regulations. And in recent weeks, I've been lucky enough to have some good presentations from people in the likes of the poultry industry who are actually transitioning in a phase where they're looking at going from cages into colonies. And so they're looking at actually taking animals in a process out of those cages as fast as they economically can, and sometimes it's economically difficult to do some of those things in a hurry. But I'm really heartened with the attitude of that industry in terms of being able to effect some change. I've also, there was reference today about sheep shearing, and in Tikawiti, in the heart of my electorate, Taranaki King Country, we've just had the New Zealand shearing champs there. And I've seen some of the graphics that have been coming out of Australia as well. And I have to say that I didn't see any sheep in distress, and there were hundreds, probably thousands of sheep shorn over that weekend. Those people are professional people who know the technicalities of shearing a sheep. I'm sure if I got hold of one and tried to shear it, it would probably panic. But when you watch the likes of a champion, like someone like David Fagan shearing a sheep, they're very professionally done and very well done. We also talk about, we've heard this afternoon about, animals being outside rather than inside. I think I'll be really interested to see what happens in some of the latest requests out there in terms of getting rid of our pests in New Zealand. There has been a call by some people in society to keep cats inside. So it's going to be really interesting, because we've got people asking to get farm animals inside and then keep outside and then keep the cats inside. It's surprising to me, probably, in this bill that it's taken such a long time for us to realise that animals are sentient beings, and I'm finally, even though we know it, it's going to be nice to actually see that finally written in legislation. I'd like to also commend Mojo Mathers on her clauses around banning cosmetics. So what I'd really like to highlight this afternoon is that we talk about being productive and competitive, and trade is very important to this country, and yes, there is a need to have high standards, and we are in a transition with a lot of industries. Earlier this year, the government released the New Zealand Animal Welfare Strategy. This sets a direction, it sets a vision. And I think, Mr Speaker, we would be arrogant to think that we in this House are the only people who are the experts on animal welfare. Industries have the ability to debate, to construct evolving standards, to work with the Ministry of Primary Industries, because people who work with animals do care about animals. And the proposals in this Act have been through rigorous consultation. They are set to act at a pace that our communities can live with. And I think that it's really important that this Act has made it clearer and more transparent, and that we can navigate our way through this bill much more clearly than we could before. There's one thing also that I'd like to just point out around trade and biosecurity, and I think it is the move to avoid unnecessary delay in urgent national biosecurity responses, which inserts new clause 5(2)(a), which would insert new subsections 2A, 2B and 2C in section 3 of the Act to provide for exemption from the requirement to seek approval from an ethics committee before killing an animal in such circumstances. Sometimes we just don't have time to go through big, long, rigorous processes which could end up substantially being a lot more dangerous to society than it would be to the animal or animals concerned in those situations. So I'm really, really pleased to see that that's changing in this Act. To clarify also what constitutes a significant surgical procedure that can only be carried out by a vet without defining it so narrowly that farmers can't do routine procedures. So that's, just another clarity that's actually going to be able to people to say, well, actually I did it because I didn't know, things are unclear under the Act, and then people go ahead and do things and find out later. So it's really important that people do know exactly what's in the Act and exactly what they are allowed to do. The other thing is that there will be greater sanctions for those who mistreat animals. And I think that's really important because at the end of the day, we do have laws to perhaps protect us from those people who perhaps don't see things the same way as the rest of us do. And that could be, that's not only farmers, that's pet owners, that's a whole raft of other people. And we've also, in this, included wild animals. And it's really important, just because they're not pets or owned by somebody, that they're not protected under our law. So I'm pleased to see that there are greater sanctions for those who do mistreat animals, because probably for those who watch not only the daily news, but at 6 o'clock news or social media is a classic these days of people showing pictures of mistreated animals. And so it's certainly important to get on top of that one. So the vast majority of New Zealanders under this bill, Mr. Speaker, will, who take care of their animals very well, will not see any major changes in terms of the way they're expected to behave with their animals. So I think it's going to deal with those people who, as I said, really don't have the feeling for animals, but those people that we need to deal with, because one thing's for certain is that those people in society who have trouble respecting animals often have trouble respecting people as well. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you.
The next call is a split call. Stephen Browning, 5 minutes.
Thank you.